Da Dang. Prologue. Under the overhanging eaves were a group of people, standing neatly in line. They were all dressed in red yesa embroidered with golden threads, and were calling politely towards the figure afar, "The Lao Zuzong is back." Note, yesa is a type of traditional Chinese clothing often worn by men to work. It's a cross-collared, long-sleeved robe with narrow pleats on the lower hem, while the back of the lower part is flat. The front had two densely pleated sides with a flat middle. It has two hems at each side. From the snow-covered field came an old man in his 60s or 70s, with a pair of young eunuchs on both sides to assist in his walk. Those in line prepared to kneel as he drew near, but the old man reached out his hand, wide palm with heavy knuckles and wrinkled with brown age spots. He waved the hand slightly as he said, "Forget about kowtowing." His voice was hoarse and rough as sandpaper as he quaveringly continued, "It's a cold day. Has His Majesty been resting?" The leading eunuch in yesa replaced the young eunuch's position and carefully helped the old man into his room. "His Majesty has." The old man was just about to take a step, yet he paused suddenly in front of the threshold. He blinked his dim and cloudy eyes as he looked behind the crowd. "Is that?" Everyone turned to see what he had set his eyes on. It was a child just a little over 10 years of age, holding a silk umbrella and wearing scanty clothes, shivering in the snow. "Is he new in the palace?" asked the old man. "Blessed Lao Zuzong's sharp eyesight. We just brought him in this afternoon. He was the picked of the batch." The old man gestured towards the child for him to come over. "Are you from Jali?" "He's indeed a gift from Jali. Our Lao Zuzong has the eyes of the phoenix as if in his prime years." Note, Jali is the old name of Korea. The eunuchs in yesa were vying to flatter the old man. They showered him with compliments, of him being hale and hearty, of him becoming even stronger as he aged. The child approached. It seemed that he was not yet accustomed to the court etiquette. He lifted his head with eyes long and watery, the corner of his eyes slanted slightly upwards, a pair of charming phoenix eyes. The old man studied the child's face as if he was intrigued. He even gently brushed that delicate face with his old, frail hands as he asked, "Your name?" Note, phoenix eyes are eyes whose outer corners incline upwards. The child replied softly in Chinese, "My surname is Kim." The old man shook his head in disapproval, "Better to have the surname Zhang." The child was dumbfounded. Those in the red yesa responded immediately, "His surname is Zhang. We'll change it right away." The old man turned towards his chamber. Eagerly, the crowd followed, pushing the child forward as they did. The room was huge, yet only a few candles were lit. Hanging on the wall was a heavy bow and a weathered long sword. The child looked around. The chamber did not look like it belonged to the chief eunuch of the Directorate of Ceremonies. Only the fan with golden calligraphy revealed the owner's power and reputation. It was a lavish fan, its wooden ribs painted red, with a green surface containing quotes from the Mencius on both sides. The old man removed his suede coat by himself, showing the red tile with rank badge he wore underneath. His tall figure implied that he used to be a sturdy man, but now he had stooped shoulders. With his shaky hand, the old man pointed at the pastry box and muttered, "Go ahead, there's some candy floss in the shape of tiger eyes inside." Note, rank badge also known as Mandarin Square, Buzi. It's a large embroidered square badge sewn onto the outer robe of an official to indicate the rank of the official wearing it. Squares depicting birds were used for civil officials, while animals were used for military officials. The child checked the contents of the pastry box, the silver ingots, the sugar towers and jackfruits. These were all delicacies. Aware of his position, the child rubbed his hands and asked tamely, "Grandpa, what incense should we burn?" The old man choked a bit as he laughed, appearing to be amused by being addressed as Grandpa. He coughed as he tried to catch his breath and told the child cordially, "Use the Lengsheng incense." Lengsheng incense produces fumes that rise straight up and makes one reminiscent of the past. The child immediately carried the copper incense burner to the small incense table, using a pair of tweezers to gently place a piece of incense into the burner. He lit the incense and blew tenderly for it to burn well. By the time he turned around, the old man had already leaned back against the chair, his head tilted slightly and was sound asleep. The fumes were rising. They were indeed going straight up. The child squatted down and hugged his knees beside the small incense table. He recalled the tales he heard as a child, that when this type of incense burned, the immortal men from heaven would follow the fumes and arrive at the mortal realm, riding on the back of white cranes. End chapter. ***** Note, De Dang denotes a powerful eunuch. De Dang. Chapter 1. Xia Yule woke up all of a sudden, as if someone had stepped hard on his foot in the dark, as if his chest was so compressed that he could not even breathe well. The air he took in was accompanied by the burning sensations of alcohol in his throat. The first things he saw as he opened his eyes were the appallingly scattered cups and plates. He reached out towards the bowl of shuawa noodles that he had ordered before getting drunk. It was already cold. He struggled to cover his mouth as he retched from drunkenness. Crack. He heard a crisp sound on his right. Crack. He heard it again. It seemed someone was cracking melon seeds. Aya, official Lu, he heard something diagonally opposite to him. It was the light-hearted and somewhat indolent, high-pitched giggling of a young boy. His giggles turned fast for a while before slowing down again. It was a rather seductive sound. Xia Yule turned to his right. The sky was painted gray by the rising mist, the dawn was almost here. The candlelight in the room was dimming. Under the light, he observed the bare arm of the boy, white and smooth as a freshly washed lotus root. The boy was wearing a gold bracelet, his exquisite face the size of a palm. He wore his hair in the shape of a flower, with a white peony on the top. The hair bun was slightly distorted under the weight of the huge peony. As Xia Yule stared at the boy turned to stare back at him. His eyes were big and watery, and above his eyes were a pair of elegant willowy eyebrows. His thin lips covered with rouge moved slightly, forming a little smile. "Are you awake?" The boy wasn't being too polite, so the conversation felt a little intimate. Xia Yule nodded. "What time is it?" "It's about Wujin." The young boy replied, at ease in female clothing. His Nanjing dialect had both southern and northern accents. He was still cracking melon seeds loudly as he spoke. The officials of several departments have left already. /Note, Wujin, otherwise called Hour of Yin, which is 3 to 5 a.m. / Is he about 14 or 15 years old? Xia Yule thought to himself. What a young and energetic age, yet he had to dress as a girl and serve wine to men. The feast should have finished by now, said Xia Yule. Finished? The boy lifted his eyebrows as if he had heard a joke. I know these men from the Ministry of War. It'd be fast if they can end it by the next morning. Xia Yule followed the boy's slightly raised little finger to look around the table. People were lying all over the place. One or two of them were probably awake, yet they were also holding young boys in their arms and making out. Their clothes were unbuttoned as they held the boy's clothes, pouting their lips and demanding a kiss, murmuring, "My little beauty. Do you have water?" Xia Yule turned away from the scene. The boy let go of his hand and the small handful of black melon seeds he was holding fell over the edge of the table. Hey, you're here to play. There is only wine, no water. He turned around and examined Xia Yule curiously. They said you were demoted from Beijing. Xia Yule wasn't interested in talking to him. Wine will do, he said. Who did you offend? The boy picked up the wine jug, poured a shallow layer of wine into 2 cups and placed them a little farther away. Let's play one round, and if you win, I'll feed you the drink. Xia Yule was somewhat annoyed. He got up to grab the cup, but the boy took advantage of the situation and leaned into his arms, trapping him with his warmth. This was often the start of a love affair, but Xiaoyula was not ready for that. He had just arrived in Nanjing and he didn't want to stir up trouble in a brothel, so he asked indifferently, "What game?" "It's a Nanjing game. Do you not know how to play it?" The young boy felt the annoyance in his voice, yet he pretended to not notice it as he leaned his soft body against Xiaoyula. Being worried that he could not support the boy's weight, Xiaoyula turned his hand over. Just as he flipped his hand over, the boy followed and rested his head confidently in Xiaoyula's palm, rubbing his fluffy hair and soft cheek back and forth. "But then, I don't know how to play Beijing games." The boy stared at Xiaoyula with passionate eyes, making him a bit at a loss. "This Xia is merely a 6th rank official in management. Why do you want to be involved with me?" The boy whispered, "I like your handsome looks." "Does that count?" Xiaoyula's face turned glistening red instantly. Beijing's officials also held frequent dinner parties and they also ordered male escorts for entertainment, but those toy boys from Lianzihutong were nothing in comparison to this brazen boy here. He wanted to call him wanton, but that didn't feel quite right as this boy is outright presumptuous. Yet his presumptuousness was not in an annoying manner. /Note: Lianzihutong is a place where government official often held banquets in Beijing, the imperial capital. You are being too discourteous." The boy burst out laughing. "Good grr." He nestled up next to Xiaoyula's stiff arm. "Nanjing is a place of extravagance. There's no telling reasons, and no rules." He came closer and closer as if bullying Xiaoyula. So close that he almost kissed the corner of his lips. "This place only recognizes 4 things," he paused, murmuring as he gently blew warm air between Xiaoyula's lips: liquor, sex, wealth, and recklessness. This male courtesan was pretty and smart. He looked just as good as an attractive young lady. Xiaoyula was stunned. Trying to get himself together, he abruptly withdrew his hand from the boy and staggered towards the door, knocking over the chair as he went. The intricately carved door was shut tightly. With a push, the chilly wind of the early spring came gusting in. The crescent moon was still hanging on the corner of the eaves, and the birds were cooing from the pine tree. Xiaoyula shut the door behind his back, then turned his head and saw a lonely silhouette sitting on the corridor to his left. It was a thin, tall figure sitting straight. He recognized it: "Your Excellency Chu." The figure stood up, the wide sleeves of his robe shifting in the wind. "Xiaoxiang," he greeted. /Note: the Xiang suffix pretty much translate to brother, such that Xiaoxiang means brother /. The figure approached unhurriedly from the dark corridor, holding a hand fan. The moonlight shone first on his newly forged silver belt, then on his lavishly embroidered rank badge representing his position as a 6th rank official. At last, the moonlight revealed his young and confident face. Chu Feng, courtesy name Simu, was transferred to Nanjing's Ministry of War the same time as Xiaoyula. He was also a 6th rank official in management. "Did you just woke up?" These two were not acquaintances. In fact, they have only spoken to each other once during the dinner party last night. Yet Chu Feng wasn't using formal speech when he talked to him. Xiaoyula was rather surprised, but he didn't want to be too formal, so he replied, "I can't drink much." Chu Feng smiled brightly, revealing 2 small canine teeth. Now he looked somewhat boyish. "You need to practice. Nanjing is no comparison to Beijing. Your capacity for alcohol will be your outermost armor." A gust of west wind came, dragging thick clouds to cover the moon. The pine tree branches rustled as the wind went by. It was probably the effects of alcohol that made Xiaoyula so casual and almost reckless. "Why didn't you sit in the room?" Chu Feng, however, didn't seem to mind. He pouted blatantly as he asked in there. He rolled his eyes as he continued, "I can't stand it. They seem to be the same kind of people." Xiaoyula took a step forward and stood by his side. "Judging from your accent, are you a local?" "I was born in Yingtianfu. I used to serve in the Ministry of Rites as the chief of the worshipping office." My new position is neither a promotion nor a demotion. He had a particular air about him. Xia Yuluk figured it out within a few exchanges of words. It was the free and self-assured characteristics of those born with a silver spoon in their mouths. From the Ministry of Rights to the Ministry of War. Why, that's considered a step forward. Chu Feng had very beautiful eyes. They were long and narrow, slightly slanting upwards at the corner of the eyes. With these eyes, he took a casual sideways glance at Xia Yulu and said, "From the Beijing Censorate to the Nanjing Ministry of War, Xiaoxiang is going backwards." Xia Yulu didn't respond. "I heard you have offended some powerful eunuch." Xia Yulu pointed to the sky with his index finger. "Offended the Lao Zuzong of the Directorate of Ceremonies, the seal-holding director himself." Chu Fen became very interested. In the chilly air of early spring, he opened his folding fan swiftly, making a whoosh sound as he asked, "What happened?" "My imperial examination result was ranked on the Jiashan list. This list was handpicked by him. Everyone else on the list went to thank the Lao Zuzong, but I didn't." Chu Feng raised one eyebrow in admiration, his eyes were as bright as the stars. "You have guts." Xia Yulu waved his hands immediately. "It's nothing compared to you people from Nanjing. Even the serving boys in a brothel are so very wanton." "You mean those inside the room?" Chu Feng was puzzled, as he pointed his fan at the carved door. "Which one?" Then he came to a sudden realization. "Are you talking about the one wearing peony flowers?" Xia Yulu didn't expect him to get it right. Surprisingly, Chu Fen withdrew from his carefree attitude just now and lowered his voice cautiously. "That is not an ordinary serving boy. He has someone with the surname Zheng supporting him." Xia Yulu leaned closer to him. "Who's that someone?" Chu Feng grabbed his hand with cold fingers, as if he was grasping Xia Yulu's heart. "When we talk about the number of eunuchs in the cities, Beijing and Nanjing are certainly at the top of the list. Let's not discuss Beijing but in Nanjing." As he spoke, he pulled Xia Yulu further from the door. "There are two powerful eunuchs here. One of them is Liao Jixiang, a fourth-rank admiral in Weaving and Sewing Bureau. And the other is Zheng Xian, the grand supervising eunuch and a crucial figure in Nanjing. /Note, Weaving and Sewing Bureau, ZHIZAO. It's the department that produces fabrics and clothing for the imperial family. These fabrics and clothes can be awarded to the loyal subjects of the emperor / For reasons unknown to Xia Yulu, a layer of cold sweat broke out on his back. "The young boy you mentioned is Guo Xiaozhou. He is Zheng Xian's." Chu Feng shook his sleeve to free his hand from it, raised a little finger and waved it as a hint, "Favorite." It's not uncommon in Beijing for eunuchs to play around with young boys, but living in Beijing felt just like living under the emperor's feet. Those in high positions rarely took risks such as these when living near the palace. Xia Yulu was puzzled. If that eunuch is doting on him, why would he still show up in a? It was still rather dark outside, yet Chu Feng looked around uneasily. "Just take my words as drunk talk." He leaned closer and whispered in Xia Yulu's ears, "Guo Xiaozhou is Zheng Xian's spy, who specializes in collecting intelligence from the officials' banquets and feasts." Chu Feng was using benzoin perfume, and even after a night, the cloyingly sweet scent was still pervading in the air. Xia Yulu felt rather uncomfortable being so close to Chu Feng. "No wonder," he replied. He recalled Guo Xiaozhou saying, "These men from the Ministry of War." He obviously didn't have any respect for government officials. But what about his lingering and almost explicit flirting with me? Xia Yulu thought, was it really because I was good looking? Chu Feng still wanted to say something, but suddenly there were noises coming from a door not far from where they were. The door latch was pushed left and right, and with a squeaking sound, it was opened. The first figure they saw was a monk in Kaizaya, followed by a line of people dressed in official uniforms. Two people leading the line carried a pair of white lanterns in their hands. Upon a closer look, they saw a large character Xi written on the lanterns. Xia Yulu could tell at a glance that those people were eunuchs. The one in the middle was wearing a green yesa without a rank badge. Hanging from his belt was a weathered long sword. Those eunuchs also saw Xia Yulu and Chu Feng. They inspected these two men as they proceeded in line, turning their heads towards them frequently. The eunuch in the green yesa bid farewell to the monk reverently and led the eunuchs out along the road, jingling the jade pendant on his gold belt while walking. "Who are those?" Xia Yulu asked in a low voice. From the weaving and sewing bureau, Chu Feng turned slightly sideways, as if withdrawing from a conflict. "The one in the lead is called Zhang Chai." As the line approached, Xia Yulu could finally observe them closely. That eunuch in green yesa named Zhang Chai was obviously nothing but a child. He had a pair of charming phoenix eyes and his lips were round and small. He was just about the same age as Guo Xiaozhou. He had a round chin, making him look a little chubby and cute. Under the bright moonlight, one could easily tell that his glittering yesa was made of silk woven with gold threads. The boy raised his head rather arrogantly like a real imperial court official as he passed by, giving no attention to people on his side. The jingling sound of jade pendants and golden red candle lights followed his steady steps as the line slowly disappeared in the distance. "That boy is one of Liao Jixiang's subordinates." Chu Feng put away his fan and signaled Xia Yulu to go back with him. "He's from Jiali." Many eunuchs in Beijing were gifts from Jiali. Xia Yulu was not surprised. Yet he was rather curious about the monk. Why is there a monk? This is the courtyard of Lingfu Temple. The front part is renovated to build a garden as a venue for banquets. After passing through that door, Chu Feng pointed towards the corner door where Zhang Chai had come out just now. Behind the door is the meditation room. Xia Yulu was dumbfounded. This temple knows how to run brothel business. The monks hired cooks to prepare the wine and the dishes we ordered. Chu Feng gave a hearty laugh and pulled Xia Yulu's sleeve passionately. "Let's go. Go and drink one more round." Xia Yulu felt a headache as soon as he heard the word drink and protested, "I can't drink anymore." He avoided Chu Feng's hand, turned around and hurriedly took a few steps to escape. "I'll leave first, and you can tell them that I was very drunk. Do you have a sedan chair waiting?" Chu Feng playfully smiled, revealing a pair of small canine teeth as he saw Xia Yulu's funny reactions. "You can use mine. It's the one with soft blue curtains on the left-hand side of the gate." Yet Xia Yulu was already backing away and cupping his fists to gesture farewell. "There is no need. I'll walk in the wind to sober up." The night was charming, and the moon was radiating soft and gentle lights all around him. Besides, the banquet happened to take place in an elegant garden. There were curious-looking rocks along the tortuous trails, window frames carved in delicate flower patterns and ponds. After calming himself down, all Xia Yulu heard was the rustling sound of the pine trees in the wind. This was his first day in Nanjing. Accompanied by the lingering effects of alcohol, Xia Yulu recalled the souls he met today: Chu Feng, Guo Xiaozhou, and Zhang Chai. They all felt like people coming right out of a dream. Outside the garden was a long street, and there were already early rising peddlers setting up wonton stalls at the intersection. As Xia Yulu turned around, he noticed that there was indeed an old stone monument erected in front of the garden's gate, with the words Lingfu Temple vaguely engraved on it. It must have been difficult for such a small temple to exist in the bustling Nanjing city. No wonder it had to develop some secular business. Xia Yulu leisurely strode along the moss-covered courtyard wall. With an inadvertent turn of his head, he noticed a deserted stone lamp standing close to the base of the wall down the narrow alley. Something was placed in the lamp was shifting gently in the wind, reflecting white light on its surface. He approached the lamp. It looked like someone stuffed paper in there, so he picked out a piece at random and gave it a casual glance. Yet he suddenly froze as if he was struck by lightning. What stunning calligraphy! The turning strokes displayed the strength and vibrancy of a jagged old pine, and the curves appeared as free-spirited as a wild crane flying through the clouds. The Kangfeng showed starkness, and the Lufeng was written with ease. The strokes were clean and clear, as if they were made of steel and silver. Notes, 1. Kangfeng is a Chinese calligraphy style that hides the pointy traces of the brush. 2. Lufeng is a Chinese calligraphy style that shows the pointy traces of the brush. Xia Yule was absolutely stunned, and on a whim, he took all the papers and unfolded them one by one. Most of them contained poems such as "The plum blossom giveth scent to thy hometown," and "The pine tree stayeth by thee," and "Like in a dream, the winds and clouds never stay, in the mortal realm, the passage of time never halts." There was only one piece of paper which was written roughly, with grief and indignation, with two big characters in the center, Nanming. Nanming. What a thin piece of paper, yet it contained the misery of a scholar. Xia Yule's eyes felt hot and were swelling with tears. He felt so much connection with the person behind these pieces of calligraphy. He was deeply moved. Holding the pile of papers, he went in circles like a fool. He came to a decision at last. Turning around and stomping his feet, Xia Yule went straight home. His home was located in Santiago Lane, Xian Gate, and he hired only one servant. He didn't even ask to be waited upon when he entered the door, as he went to the study immediately. The paper was laid on the table, the ink was ready. Xia Yule finished about 20 sheets in a row before he was finally satisfied. On the paper, Diting was written in cursive. Note, Diting is a divine creature with a single horn in Chinese mythology. It is said that Diting listens to what's in the heart of all creature and could distinguish the good from the bad, the kind from the evil. With this, Xia Yule is asking the other person to talk more and take him as a confidant. Putting down the pen, he carefully folded the paper, tucked it in his pocket, and stormed out again. End chapter. Dang. Chapter 2. It was yet another banquet. Xia Yule sat at a corner of the long table, staring blankly at the delicacies in front of him. The main course was a roasted goose surrounded by 4 plates of sugar-coated nuts. The wine on the table was Kai Ulabai from Jinan. There were also the junzi fish of Xinghua, the goldfinches of Linjiang, the puffer fish of Jianjian, and the bitter bamboo shoots from Jianjiguan. All were the best in the country. He had been in Nanjing for more than 10 days, yet he spent every night feasting and looking for entertainment with his colleagues. They visited courtesan and toyed with male prostitutes. This seemed to be what the life of Nanjing's Ministry of War entailed. "What are you thinking?" Chu Feng elbowed him. "The goose is good. Have some." As Xia Yule picked up the chopsticks, he noticed their silver texture and the ivory caps. "This is lavish," he marveled. Chu Feng heard him, so he finished his wine and showed him the cup. There are also cups with gold engravings. Zhang Xian was hosting the banquet tonight, so naturally, he made it ostentatious. However, the host hadn't even shown up 2 hours after the start of the banquet. Not only Zhang Xian but the head of the Ministry of War was also absent. "The chief is late as well," murmured Xia Yule. Chu Feng didn't even lift his head. "He won't be here tonight," he said, as he leaned closer and pressed his face against Xia Yule's neck. "He wasn't invited at all." It was that scent of benzoin again. Xia Yule leaned away from it. "How so?" "Look closely. He's not the only one missing here." Hearing what Chu Feng had said, Xia Yule carefully checked the head count. Indeed, Minister Liu, His Excellency He, and Deputy Minister Ye were not around. "Does it mean?" "Exactly." Chu Feng pressed closer to him and spoke in a softer voice. "If it were me, I would also invite my own people only." Xia Yule became nervous all of a sudden. "Then what about us?" Chu Feng held his hand under the table and patted it reassuringly. "We still have a choice of whether or not to take the eunuch's side or not." Xia Yule felt that he couldn't stay at the feast any longer. Chu Feng knew exactly what he was thinking and smiled at him in a carefree manner. "This is why I said you should eat. There won't be another sumptuous feast for us in the future." Just as they were talking, everyone at the table stood up abruptly. Xia Yulu and Chu Feng thought it was Zhang Xian who had arrived, so they got up and bowed. Yet the figure entering the room belonged not to a eunuch but to a tall man in his early 30s. He kept a neat short mustache and was wearing an embroidered uniform. The clothing was made of gaugy fabric and it was as blue as the Buddha's head, with floral and fiyu embroideries over the arms and shoulders. His military officers had implied his position in the Jin Yiwei, the leader of 1,000 men. Note: Jin Yiwei were the elite bodyguards and secret police that directly served the emperors of the Ming dynasty. They were authorized to overrule judicial proceedings in prosecutions, with full autonomy granted in arresting, interrogating and punishing anyone, including nobles and the emperor's relatives. They were in charge of imperial prison / mill arch too. Everyone had their hands in fists to salute him. Note: mill arch, a position in Jin Yiwei which indicate one as a leader of 1,000 men / The man surnamed Tu responded with a casual nod, yet he didn't even take a seat. He rolled up his sleeves as he walked and asked, "Is Du Gong here?" Hearing a negative reply, he showed no hesitation and went straight through the banquet hall into a side hall and waited there. The guests sat down again. Xia Yulu frowned at the incident just now. Does this person come from powerful backgrounds? He's Tu Yao, Zhang Xian's close supporter. Chu Feng was just picking up his chopsticks when he heard the hasty footsteps outside, so he sighed and had no choice but to put down his chopsticks again. The host has arrived. Zhang Xian was expected to appear as a bloated old man, but Xia Yulu was dumbfounded when he came into his view with steady steps, surrounded by a dozen or so young eunuchs and wearing a jade belt. It was almost impossible to describe his face using plain language. Yet, if he had to describe it, he would have compared Zhang Xian's look with the vibrantly colored blossoms of peach and plum trees. Zhang Xian was wearing a robe of lychee red with shiny lion embroideries. His rank badge displayed the pattern of a bull, and the long sleeves of his robe barely revealed his snow-white fingertips. The room was full of military officials. However, everyone, regardless of their ranks, stood solemnly to wait on him. All stood in silence to witness the young eunuch lifting the back of Zhang Xian's robe and helping him to take a seat. As Zhang Xian finally settled idly in the chair, he let out the first sentence since his arrival: "This one is late." Xia Yulu felt his palms became sweaty, so sweaty that his fists couldn't clench tightly. He recalled a poem of Wei Zhuang as his mind wandered: "What shall I compare thy beauty to? Like a branch of plum blossoms preserved in spring snow, thou art surrounded by fragrant mist and radiate in the morning glow." Zhang Xian's lips were redder than the color of lychees. Those lips that were pouting just a moment ago was now forming a smile all of a sudden. Zhang Xian's voice was extremely soft. It was the sort of soft voice that was unique to a significant figure, which compelled people to listen with full attention. "This one is happy today and wishes to propose a toast to everyone." Immediately, a young eunuch approached him with a cup full of wine. Zhang Xian accepted the cup and finished the content in one gulp. The 2 rows of officials standing upright around him picked up their own wine right away and shouted loudly, competing their volumes with one another, thanking Du Gong for granting us the wine. "Good. Very good," nodded Zhang Xian in satisfaction. "Let's eat." He can't be older than 27 or 28 years old, Xia Yulu guessed, but he certainly looked much older from the way he talked and socialized with the officials. Zhang Xian was just putting down his cup and about to look up, when he spotted the 6th-rank official from Beijing staring at him foolishly. He turned his body slightly and asked in a proud manner, "Tan Hua Xie, have you gotten used to Nanjing's dishes?" Note: Tan Hua is the 3rd top overall placer in the imperial examination / All eyes were fixated on him. Xia Yulu was startled. He was indeed the Tan Hua on the successful list of the imperial examination takers, and the entire Ministry of War knew about it, but no one would mention it, simply because they were so different from him. "I'm quite used to it," he said hurriedly as he stood up and bowed, thanking the Lord for his concern. "All right," said Zhang Xian, and he got up from his seat without another word. With the young eunuch's support, he steadily made way to the side hall as he said, "Enjoy yourselves." He definitely went to look for Tu Yao. Xiao Lo sat down slowly. Chu Feng began talking as soon as he sat down. "Don't be overwhelmed, he is only capable of repeating those sentences over and over again. What a hollow piece of Phoebe wood. There is nothing impressive on the inside. What's his background?" Xiao Lo wiped his hands on his handkerchief. "He's been in the palace all this time. He supervised mining in Guangxi for 2 years and probably made a fortune there," Chu Feng sneered, "or else how can he afford to bribe for this grand supervisor position?" Xiao Lo's mouth felt dry, so he leaned over the table to reach a cup of tea. As he did so, he saw Guo Xiaozhou. He was wearing a plain coat and a gold-embroidered skirt, which had dozens of fine pleats hugging around his waist. The pleated clothing rippled like water even with his tiniest movements. He must have come here with Zhang Xian, but Xiao Lo hadn't noticed his presence at all. This reminded him of the old saying, "Who would have noticed a begonia when the peony is in bloom?" Guo Xiaozhou smiled coquettishly, flitting amongst a few officials he was acquainted with like a butterfly, gorgeous and full of energy. Xiao Lo lowered his head and took a sip of tea. Just when he was about to swallow, someone called out from behind him. He turned around to find a childlike eunuch, bowing respectfully. "My lord wishes to have a private audience with you." Xiao Lo cast a completely unintentional look at Chu Feng, silently asking, "Only me?" The little eunuch was very quick-witted and resourceful. He glanced coldly at Chu Feng as he said, "Our lord would like to talk about his hometown with you, as official Xia also came from Beijing." Xiao Lo couldn't think of how to politely refuse, so could only follow the eunuch to a small hall with dim lighting. The only light source in the room was a candle burning on the table. Zhang Xian sat reclined in his chair, leaning on his arms in a casual posture. Tu Yao was standing next to him and bowing down close to his ears, as if they were whispering. Suddenly, Zhang Xian pushed him and began laughing loudly. Not only did Tu Yao amuse Zhang Xian, he seemed to be enjoying himself, too. However, his expression turned distant when he looked up and saw Xiao Lo. Tu Yao turned around and went to the table to fiddle with the paperweight. Zhang Xian was still smiling heartily as he raised his hand to Xiao Lo. "Chun Chu, come here." Chun Chu was Xiao Lo's courtesy name. He felt somewhat uneasy being addressed so intimately. "This one doesn't deserve your hospitality." Almost instantly, Zhang Xian changed his expression. He put away his smile and stopped talking. All he did was sit there in a dull manner, as if he was angry. Xiao Lo couldn't stand the silence, so he had to approach Zhang Xian. Zhang Xian didn't offer him a seat. Instead, he tapped the corner of the table with his finger. "Has your family come over?" "My parents passed away a long time ago and my humble wife was left in Beijing." Zhang Xian's long eyelashes moved lazily. "You can at least bring your concubines along." Xiao Lo looked at Tu Yao briefly from the corner of his eye. "This one doesn't have concubines." Zhang Xian seemed quite surprised and he even turned to look at him. Just as he was about to say something, a young eunuch appeared with 2 scrolls of paintings and reported, "Deng Jian has brought in 2 landscape paintings using splashed ink by Mi Fu as presents." Zhang Xian let out a hum, without even looking up. Then, he asked Xiao Lo, "So, do you like those catamites?" /Note, catamite refer to a boy kept for homosexual practices / Xiao Lo felt humiliated as if he was slapped abruptly across the face. Yet he couldn't afford to appear upset. This one is a dull man. This one only knows how to read and study and knows not much about those sorts of entertainments. Zhang Xian raised one eyebrow all of a sudden, apparently displeased. Nevertheless, even his displeased look was extremely gorgeous. Xiao Lo stole another glance or two, and didn't dare to raise his head again. Shortly afterwards, another young eunuch came in, hugging 2 red-billed pigeons whose legs were bound by strands. Wang Sui Ren has sent in a pair of pigeons with black tails, emerald green feathers, and coral red bills, known as Jui Unur. Zhang Xian's eyes immediately went to the pigeons. Hurry! Get some light. He got up from his chair, jumpy like a child, as he told his entourage, take note of this one surnamed Wang. What a eunuch! Xia Yulu thought, he likes pigeons, enjoys ostentatious feasts, perhaps he also loves horse racing and cockfighting. On the other side of the room, Zhang Xian and Tu Yao were appreciating the pigeons, exchanging compliments from time to time. While he remained standing where he was and waited dumbly in silence, neither walking over nor looking at the two. Zhang Xian looked back at Xia Yulu occasionally. He became roughly familiar with Xia Yulu's temperament, noting his isolation and distance from the rest. Chun Chu, Zhang Xian put down the pigeon and came over, this one will be straightforward with you. He took the handkerchief from the servants and wiped his hands, this one wants to raise your ranks. Xia Yulu refused. What virtue and ability do this one have to be offered a promotion? Zhang Xian sneered, a charm that seemed almost deadly permeated through his imperial uniform with bullfighting rank badge. You didn't thank the Lao Zuzong for his kindness in Beijing. This one must reward you simply because of this. Xia Yulu couldn't figure it out, so he took some courage to look at him directly. Zhang Xian had a faint smile on his face. There is only one sun in the Forbidden City. Yet there is more than one cloud surrounding the sun. Since you pushed his away, why not come to me? Xia Yulu was enlightened, it turned out that the cloud over Zhang Xian's head was not the Lao Zuzong. He had other connections in Beijing. This one doesn't understand the noble's affairs. That being said, he stealthily glanced at Tu Yao. That man was standing in the shadows of the candlelight, his face was indiscernible. Xia Yulu could only see his stunning embroidered uniform and the two pigeons flapping their wings in his arms. Judging from Tu Yao's background, could it be that they are in favor of the provincial military commander of Directorate of Ceremonies, the eunuch of the Eastern Depot? Note, Eastern Depot is a secret intelligence agency of the Ming dynasty ran by the eunuchs. It has roughly the same power as the Jin Yiwei. Both agencies take direct orders from the emperor and carry out missions in secret. It was created to counterbalance the power of the Jin Yiwei. As he let his mind wander in shock and horror, Guo Xiaozhou walked in elegantly with his painted skirt. Zhang Xian had no airs or graces in front of him and let out his temper on Guo Xiaozhou with no restraints. Why are you here? We're discussing serious business. Guo Xiaozhou didn't appear timid at all. A light pat on Zhang Xian's chest with his tiny white hand was his response, and with it, he pushed him to sit on the chair. Following that, Guo Xiaozhou took a seat in his lap and leaned into his arms. Then he raised his left hand to Zhang Xian. Pretty, isn't it? It was a huge white jade ring on his middle finger, apparently new. Worried that Guo Xiaozhou would slip off, Zhang Xian wrapped one arm around his waist. Don't you have so many rings already? Xia Yulu couldn't make out the rest of the words. Those two were whispering into each other's ears, talking about intimate things, which Xia Yulu didn't bother to listen to. After a while, it was Zhang Xian who gave in first. Okay. I'll take note and promote this person tomorrow. Guo Xiaozhou left contentedly. When Xia Yulu tried to talk again, Zhang Xian refused to listen, putting up an impatient and tired look. He waved his hand and gestured for him to back off. Keep the words in your stomach for a while, he said, as if issuing a warning. Keep it well, we shall have plenty of time to talk about them in the future. Xia Yulu came out of the side hall. He couldn't bear to stay any longer, so he bid farewell to Chu Feng and walked home. On the way back, he deliberately detoured to the stone lamp of Lingfu Temple to get his letter. The sender of the letter was an anonymous friend. Ever since Xia Yulu's uninvited reply of ditaying, the two began to develop a camaraderie. They had exchanged letters for more than 10 days, and on the occasion that they didn't receive any letters, they felt lost. Xiaoyu finally felt relieved when he held the letter in his hands. The first thing he did when he got home was to enter the study and read the letter. The letter was not long, and it was written in small characters. The night afore had clear sky, and gentle winds came and went. I thought of thee, thus composed this poem, named, A Gift to My Friend. The following lines were his poem, which was decent, yet the calligraphy was genuinely impressive. The handwriting revealed to Xiaoyu that the owner was a pure and simple person, as calm as the stillness of water. To write his reply, Xiaoyu especially prepared silks and paper, bought ink sticks with silkworm patterns, and used a huzhu calligraphy brush. He wrote down neatly. The bright moon and the tender winds pale in comparison to thy calligraphy. The day afore was Jinge, so I wore a short shirt and tidied up my garden. On my doorsteps, I planted one pale green peach blossom tree, 2 poppies, some chrysanthemums, red daffodils, orchids, and Chinese pinks. Beside my roof was a crabapple tree. I wonder, wouldst thou appreciate their beauty as I do? Let's wait till Gyu in March, when the garden cometh to full blossoms, whose appearance is gorgeous and whose smell fragrant. I pray that time hastens, then we could admire them together. Xiaoyu didn't sign his name when he finished writing. As he removed the paperweight, he picked up the paper and examined his calligraphy again and again. When he compared his writing with the anonymous friend, he had a silly laugh both in shyness and admiration. Afterwards, he opened the letter box, and put the letter safely away. Master, the servant called outside, are you still going out? No. Fetch some water for me. Xiaoyu folded up his reply and placed it on the desk with the intent to deliver it to the stone lamp tomorrow morning, on the way to his work. End chapter.